Hello, hello. Welcome back to Let's Talk H.P. Lovecraft. If you've not yet subscribed to our channel, please take a moment to do that now. All right, we are getting right down to the very end of all of the fiction of H.P. Lovecraft. We're down to actually the last two, including today's, and both of these were written when he was just 7 or 8 years old. Today's story is The Mystery of the Graveyard, or A Dead Man's Revenge, a detective story. It was written by 8-year-old H.P. Lovecraft in 1898, and it was first published in 1959 in the Shuttered Room and Other Pieces. If you're new to the channel, the way these work is I do a brief synopsis of what happens in the story and then try to wrap it up with some thoughts and things about what it all means, put it into perspective in terms of the greater body of H.P. Lovecraft's work. All right then, synopsis. At the funeral of one Joseph Burns, the rector, Mr. Dodson, goes down into his tomb, and in accordance with Burns' final wishes, he places a small golden ball on an A emblem, which is spotted on the floor. Some hours later, Dodson is missing. Nobody can find him. He's not down there. He's just disappeared into thin air. But shortly after that, one Mr. Bell shows up at the Dodson's home and tries to extort $10,000 from Dodson's daughter, Miss Dodson. Miss Dodson, instead of getting the money, leaves the room briefly and goes and calls a detective named King John. King John doesn't really do any detective work in this story, and Bell is soon after apprehended, and there is a trial. During the trial, Mr. Dodson shows up out of nowhere inexplicably and reveals that he'd been trapped in a secret apartment at the bottom of Burns' tomb. It's revealed that Bell and Francis Burns, the brother of the deceased, had orchestrated the whole thing as a revenge plot for some unknown slight against them performed many, many years ago by Dodson. Burns and Bell are sent to jail, and Miss Dodson marries King John. All right, so not one of the great works of modern Western literature, obviously. The story is divided into 12 chapters. However, being a child's story, those 12 chapters are actually just one paragraph each. And I very much relate to this. Memories of my childhood writing exploits. That's how children write books. No doubt he probably thought of this as my first book, 12 chapters. But in fact, it's just 12 paragraphs. I'd say it's more ambitious than the previous two we read here on this channel, which you can check out in the playlist. Those were both like one-paragraph stories. This, of course, is a 12-paragraph story. So there is that. There is some development, a little bit more ambition here than in those previous stories. There are the makings of a kidnap/ransom story here. However, at his age, rather than providing you clues to work on, he basically does a lot of those things that, really bad storytellers, some who are still adults do, which is to sort of like give you exposition where he tells you everything that happened instead of actually sort of leading us down a path and helping us find out their conclusion ourselves. So in the grand scheme of things, it's forgettable, but also I think there's a charming quaintness to the whole exercise. I'm not sure quite how to explain it, but it sort of reminds me of some very sort of like primitive fable type stories that I've read, and I mean, it has nothing to do with those stories, but it has that sort of quaintness and earnestness to it that you can perhaps these days at least only get from a child who isn't sort of weighted by the cynicism of our modern world. Nothing about it really says Lovecraft to me yet. 8 years old, not seeing a lot of evidence of the man he was to become. However, the title, The Mystery of the Graveyard, very much is in keeping with the Lovecraft style of naming stories, though I'm not sure whether that story was his title or whether it was applied by the publishers who published it many, many years later in their collection. But there you have it. The Mystery of the Graveyard, a detective. Sorry, I can't speak today. Or any day for that matter sometimes. The Mystery of the Graveyard, or A Dead Man's Revenge, a detective story by 8-year-old H.P. Lovecraft in 1898. And I should add that there was the appearance of a telephone, which, yes, telephones were very much in existence in 1898. However, where I live, pretty rural, not a lot of people would have had telephones then, so pretty cool for him. Up next, and the last, perhaps Lovecraft piece of fiction that I'll ever review. The Mysterious Ship, so be sure to tune in a couple days and we will check that out. And then after that, I'm going to put the show back on hiatus for a little while, take a little break, and then there are some other Lovecraft works out there that I can discuss, such as his poetry and other writings, so we'll think about doing that sometime down the road. But in the meantime, I'll go on and try to do some other things for you here on Let's Talk, so please subscribe. And until next time, keep it creepy.